Snatch back your brain, zombie. Snatch it back and hold it.
What's up, everybody? It's me, Mr. E, back with another video, another short form video. This one is about an individual trying to flee the United States. And you're probably like, well, that happens all the time. Why is this a big deal? Well, this individual is Joseph Camarata, who was trying to flee the United States. And if you're not familiar with who Joseph Camarata is, think back to my iGenius video where it specifies that iGenius is a company underneath, or Investview is a parent company of iGenius. We'll say that. Now, this particular individual, Joseph Camarata, was the CEO of Investview until he was busted on some federal charges of fraud and stuff like that, and then he was removed. But it's still relevant because he was the CEO of Investview, who runs other companies, and that specifically iGenius, who had to rebrand 3 times because of their own failings to various governmental organizations, finding them out to be less than reputable. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about joining or signing up with that iGenius thing, that the former CEO of the parent company was busted on fraud and then got caught trying to flee the country. So more context, specifically, DOJ specified on November 3rd that during a court trial, Camarata's court, that they felt that he shouldn't be out on bail because he has access to several large amounts of assets outside the United States, like an island in the Bahamas, tons of money in other banks, boats, planes, yachts, the whole nine, as well as a girlfriend in Colombia, Bogota, Colombia, that allows him access to other things through there. So if he wanted to disappear, he could easily do that just from his island, right? So even though all that was presented, the DOJ was ultimately dismissed on that by the court, who said, no, it's fine. And they released Camarata on bail on the 29th of 2021. And part of his release conditions, though, were that he had to surrender his passport and travel documents and agree to not obtain new documents. And that was December 29th. On February 9th, the DOJ caught wind that Camarata booked a one-way travel from JFK Airport to Bogota, Colombia. And I'm probably mispronouncing Bogota, so I apologize, but that trip was supposed to take place on February 22nd, 2022. Now, sometime prior to the 21st, the DOJ filed a sealed ex parte, which I'm not familiar with that, but obviously it's revoking his bail and making sure that he stays in the country. So all of that was going on with Camarata, and when he got busted because he caught wind that there was an arrest warrant out for him, he announced it on his WhatsApp with a conversation between him and his girlfriend, who the articles that I'm reading have kept her kind of anonymous. JVCB is what they're referring to her as. So we'll just continue on that. But yeah. So February 22nd came and went. Because he caught wind of the arrest warrant, he didn't join, or he didn't board the plane. And on February 23rd, Camarata turned himself into the FBI. Now, one thing that I always find to be quite hilarious with rather wealthy people when they get in trouble, they seem to believe that any excuse is perfectly fine, and that it's completely acceptable. Anyone can make these mistakes. And what do I mean? I'll read you some quotes here. Camarata did not deny that he made the reservation or that it was for a one-way travel to Bogota, Colombia. Rather, Camarata contended that he had made the reservation in his name by mistake when he was attempting to make a reservation for his girlfriend, JVCB, a citizen of Colombia. He claimed that he only realized his mistake on February 20th, 2022, when he got an email from Delta Airlines reminding him to check in. Sus. He claimed that he then made a reservation in the name of JVCB to depart on February 23rd, 2022. I think it's safe to assume that the DOJ thought this was a bit ridiculous, laughed this one out of there, right? So another quote from Camerata contends that he made the reservation in his own name by mistake because the airline's automated reservation system filed in his name when he was making his girlfriend's reservation. As an initial matter, even if the identifier fields on the Delta Airlines website were populated with Camerata's own information, any seasoned traveler like Camerata would know that the airline requires the name of the actual passenger when making a reservation. Someone like him who flies all the time, while he may have an assistant that normally does all this, he himself would have done this at some point in time, and he would know that. Me, I've traveled a few times, and even I know that. Especially after the Patriot Act and 9/11 and all that, they're very specific. They need exact information on individuals flying on the plane because they look you up. So back and forth on the various different things. JVCB didn't actually board the flight. Surprise, surprise, because that's a way for him to say, oh, it was a mistake. Whoops. Camerata booked another flight on February 27th, which his girlfriend also didn't board. The DOJ put forth as evidence that Camerata booked his tickets with Delta Airlines were obviously not for his girlfriend. When Camerata made the reservation, this is from the DOJ. When Camerata made the reservation in his own name on February 9th, he was either planning to travel himself and later had second thoughts, or he was testing the system to see if authorities could detect that he had made a reservation. The purchase of a second ticket that JVCB herself ignored simply provided him with an implausible explanation if he were caught. And the article that I'm reading specifies if that wasn't bad enough, and I find this to be quite hilarious. So JVCB, his long-standing romantic interest, is not a U.S. citizen, right? So it gets even hairier because when they investigated into her based on this, the DOJ learned that he is fully aware that she has no legal right to enter the United States. This is DOJ quote. He has attempted unsuccessfully to obtain a visa for JCVB in the past, and when that attempt had failed, he brought her into the States through other than lawful port of entry. So he smuggled her in. Essentially, on at least 2 occasions prior to this indictment, the defendant smuggled his girlfriend into the United States by boat from the Bahamas. So here, this raises a question for me. How pretentious, maybe pretentious isn't the right word. How arrogant, that's the right one. How arrogant do you have to be to assume that you were told not to fly out of the country by the courts, to think that you were perfectly above the law and that there is no real consequence for you. So you go ahead and you book a flight thinking, I'll just tell them it was an accident. They'll be okay with that. That's fine, whatever. Why wouldn't you sneak out through the same means that you sneak people in? If you're trying to leave the country because you don't want to go to jail, it just makes sense to me. But then again, I'm not a criminal, or I don't have the wealth to do this, so I get busted. I stay in the system as it's intended. So there's also something else here, and that Camerata, he claims that his girlfriend traveled to the United States without his knowledge or assistance. Naturally, he's facing some pretty hefty charges on that, and he's like, yeah, no, I didn't know about that. So on November 3rd, while en route to the United States, this is DOJ, quote, from Colombia, the defendant learned that there was an arrest warrant for him in a WhatsApp conversation from the plane. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Camerata told JCVB about this pending arrest, to which she responded that she was upset that she did not have a visa and could not be there for him. Based on the above communication, submitted as evidence by the DOJ, contends that Camerata's excuse strains credibility. And on March 10th, a detention hearing, at March 10th, detention hearing, the court found, and this is prior to him, all this. This was March 10th, 2021. And this is DOJ. There is probable cause to believe that the defendant, Joseph Camerata, has committed a federal crime while on release, that is alien smuggling of his girlfriend. There is clear and convincing evidence that the defendant has violated the conditions of release. There is a preponderance of evidence that the defendant is unlikely to abide by any condition or combination of conditions of the release. And thus, Camarada's bail was revoked, and now he's sitting in a FDC in Philadelphia. So he's in a federal pen in Philadelphia and is scheduled to face trial on October 17th, 2022. So he, through his ignorance, he was out on bail until his court hearing in October, but he couldn't he couldn't handle that, so he decided he was going to fly anyway and break the law, and it would just be fine. He tried to pull an Epstein. Didn't work. So anyway, that is a little bit more information on there. Oh, I also think it's worth noting that the DOJ had already heard Camarada talk to somebody else in which he referred to if he ever gets caught, he's going to escape to Colombia and then disappear into the world. So that's always a fun thing there. That's one thing to remember. That is the level of criminal mind that the former CEO of Investview is capable of. And if that's what they're capable of, like attracts like. So think about that when someone's trying to get you to join iGenius. Think of this little story about Joseph Camarada trying to flee and ultimately failing. So yeah, these companies try to flatline you financially. Don't let them do it. And if you want more information on this, I'll leave a link to the article to which I got most of this information from, as well as to other articles on there. And if you're looking for a full iGenius breakdown and deep dive, I've got one which I'll put in a card up here. So, all right, take it easy. Consider subscribing.
Snatch back your brain, zombie. Snatch it back and hold it.